Thank you for your time. My name is Beitullah, and this is Shooting from the Hip. There's something I'd like to read to you. I appreciate you being here. Please keep in mind what we are doing here on Bet On It Shooting from the Hip. We explore human ideas, philosophies, and noteworthy information. This exploration is us thinking aloud, a thought exercise, jumping into ideas and examining them and re-examining them. You will find we are prone to using adult language and expressing opinion. In keeping with that, you shouldn't believe anything we say. We are not experts of any kind. We are just having fun with these ideas, philosophies, and information in the hopes you will find it fun and interesting and entertaining. We encourage you to invest time in searching out these subjects and come to your own conclusions. Now on with the shit show. Slim, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, just a day off. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm here, ready to tear into today's topic or subject of interest. And today we're going to be covering, as grim as it may sound, we're going to cover fear, danger, and death. And I think, again, it's because it's the kind of subject matter that when I was growing up in the 80s, it was the kind of thing that you were not allowed to talk about, like at least in polite company. Like you didn't discuss religion, politics, because it polarized people, right? And so, and that included views of like life and death, like what they could potentially mean, right? So having said that, to me, it's a subject that I've emotions essentially, but fear primarily, because it's such a powerful driving force for humans. The idea of death, also an incredibly motivating force for humans. And then, of course, the difference between fear and danger. I think because most people don't understand that there is a very distinct difference between fear and danger, and some immediately associate them as being kind of interchangeable. They're not, right? So today we're going to define why they're not the same. So today I think we'll start, and I love pop culture and I love Star Wars, so we're going to start with Yoda and a statement that I can take a quote that actually is incredibly telling, and regardless of the fact that's a piece of fiction, it illustrates the point perfectly, and it's not any less true, right? So the quote reads, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." Right? So again, I think it's worthy of note, right? And it was one of those ones from the first time I heard it, I never forgot it, right? So,
Yeah, I even thought that was going to be the quotation you're bringing up.
I have a few actually others that I'm going to incorporate into the conversation, but to me it seemed like it illustrated the point perfectly, that if there's such a thing as the dark side, let's say for the sake of argument, it's the worst of what you're capable of, right? So the worst thinking and the worst behaviors you're capable of producing. Fear will take you there. And it starts with fear, right? It always starts with fear. And then it eventually leads to anger. And anger's a milder form of hate. It's really frustration taken to the point where now it's disturbing to the individual who's experiencing the anger, right? Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I was thinking it's like a state of mind that we have to deal with and like avoid acting out of. So not only is it a state of mind that changes your perception, your actions, it's also like quality of life thing.
Right, 100%. So now the nature of the relationship of these emotions, right? Because anger's an emotion, so's hate, but all three of them are interrelated. In fact, they don't exist without each other. So there were kind of requirements, and then thing that it ultimately produces in the individual, that if you lead your life driven by fear, anger, and then eventually hate, then you suffer. You suffer endlessly. And in a previous episode, I think one of the first ones where we started where I introduced the idea of subjectivity and objectivity. And I made the statement that subjectivity is the source of all your suffering, right? So, and let me quantify that for a moment. So, in subjectivity, what you'll discover is that it's the thing that wants you to promote your biases, preferences, opinions, and prejudices as being primary. They supersede everybody else's. So then it makes you the focal point. So the direct result of you being the focal point then is this enormous expectation, because then you're at the center of everything. And then when the reality is you're not. So then you can't reconcile the two. So what does it produce? So what it does is initially the fear of not being able to have everything respond to you at the center, right? Which then eventually is frustration, which becomes anger, and then in some cases can lead to hate. Now hate's really intense, but it's the intense version of frustration, right? And the middle ground is anger. So if any of what I'm saying is true, if that you experience these things because of the inability for your expectations based on your subjectivity to meet those expectations, then eventually it'll lead to anxiety and stress, suffering, right? And in some cases, like people experience an intense physical response to their emotions. So then they'll have a physical kind of sensation that's negative, not in a positive light either, that's negative. So it drives them. And so then you can see then, unless I've inadequately explained it, can you see then how that with subjectivity, then what you're really cultivating when you treat it as though it's of a profound importance, that you suffer. Remember, the problem's never in that you have them. It's part of the experience of being human. The failure is when you treat them with the utmost importance, which almost virtually all of us do, right? And it's, again, part of social conditioning and the way that our nervous system's wired, default mode network, and ego all contribute to that. But that's all part of subjectivity.
Yeah.
Agree, disagree?
No, I totally agree. I feel like that lays it out pretty well. One thing I was thinking is, for a subjective perspective, if you pair it with any I'm saying subjective perspective because being subjective is not necessarily wrong if you're able to focus on being objective. So you're not putting yourself or your ego above other things. But if you look at a subjective experience where they're also pairing it with like negative emotion, the first thing you'll see is their drives and their orientation is very different than what they might actually say they believe.
Right. So like, they take on a malicious air.
Right.
And usually, typically, I would go so far as to say, like you pointed out, that they're oblivious to it.
Yeah, I really wanted to point out specifically, like, the goal orientation and the drive behind these things are interesting, because if you look at somebody who's objective and, they're having a good subjective time, they're not putting themselves in front of others.
Right.
They'll have this mentality of abundance, like, oh, look at all these solutions, all these good times, like, it's all available. But if you have a subject person with that pairing of, like, negative neurotic emotions,
right, without any objectivity.
Right. The first thing they see in their landscape is like, oh, problem, and then it's almost like they cut down or compress their own solutions. They're like, maybe that wouldn't work. Oh, that doesn't sound like it's enjoyable. So it's
you could see where that would be overwhelming.
Yeah, because it clicks back into that subjectivity.
Right. So then that sense of being overwhelmed, do you think it could produce things like anxiety and stress that would contribute further, like that would compound the negative effects?
Well, they are experiencing a negative experience. even if objectively it's not really bad at all, it's because what they see biologically, like, sorry, not what they see biologically, how they interpret the landscape around them, to them it is literally like problem, problem, problem.
Right. They're under, so that means they're constantly under duress. There's no relief.
Right.
So no wonder that then to deal with those things, they would seek some form of distraction that so they wouldn't, so their attention wouldn't be drawn to these things that are overwhelming, or the fact that like the reality their experience is just one enormous problem.
And that would throw it right to frustration, and from there, you know.
Lead to anger. So it's fear, frustration, anger, and then in extreme cases, hate, right? And we see it. We see it. It's part of the lexicon of the experiences that we've seen, particularly in like old legacy media, when you'd see it like presented in newscasts and that sort of thing, right? It's part of our history. But it's the failure of us as individuals to change the nature of our relationship,
right,
with these aspects of ourselves, right? Because they can be there, and they don't have to influence you in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I think if we're in the state of mind where fear can be an issue, it will be an issue. But if you are in a state of mind where you have this sense of abundance, the fear doesn't lead to anything. It alerts you, hey, maybe be a little scared right now, but it doesn't take over your agency.
All right, so that's interesting. So then, it's, in terms of further commentary on fear, what is it specifically then? Because I don't think we clearly defined it, and I think here's when it's critically important to understand what fear actually is, and then how it can have such profound influence on your subjectivity. So fear is a noun, right? And it's usually defined as an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief that someone or something dangerous is likely to cause you pain, or they're a threat. It's also a verb in the state of being afraid of somebody who's likely to be dangerous or to cause you pain or to be threatening. It's a distressing emotion, aroused by the sense of an impending danger or threat or pain, right? So it's an emotional response that's always connected to an expectation of something, right? So whether the threat is real or imagined, the feeling or condition of being afraid has a profound influence on the individual, right? Agree, disagree?
I agree.
Yeah.
There's examples I've heard where they had people watching TV with, traditionally scary animals up on the screen, and their body physically reacted like, hey, there's a lion there.
Okay, so we'll get into more like deep-seated fears, like, so that there's actually they do break down fear into different categories. It's 3 different categories, but getting ahead of myself. So what we'll do is let's finish the definition of fear. So before I go any further, I would like to read a quote from Mahatma Gandhi with regards to fear. The enemy is fear. We think it is hate, but it is fear. Hate's the end result, but it's fear. So fear, remember, is an emotional response to the perception of a threat or an actual threat to life or limb, right? So then under the perception, now you're going to have this fear response now also influencing your thinking, which is already self-referential, and 80% of those thoughts are negative, right? We've clearly established this because we understand the default mode network and how it works. So now you're going to compound it further with an emotion, right? So it's the psychology of fear. Fear is experienced only in the mind, right? And it can have a very profound physical response because it can produce that physiology, as you clearly stated. They've run tests where they've shown images of traditionally threatening animals, and if the image is them in a threatening position, it elicits an even more potent emotional response, right?
Right.
So it's a deep rooted. So these deep rooted fears, they're primal, and when they're really extreme, they're referred to as terror, right? And it involves, and here's the wild part: it involves a universal biochemical response and a high individual stress and anxiety response. So all those things come with fear, right? And just to be clear, what we're talking about, your body, as a result of the fear that you're experiencing in the mind, the body will respond by dumping stress hormones into the systems like cortisol and adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. It's released when the person feels threatened or has a sense of danger and feels fear. What it does is this stress hormone response is part of the fight or flight response of the body. So it's the body preparing to take action, right? And I would make the argument here that mastery of emotions, this is why it's paramount. Because of all these things produce a cycle that'll be difficult to break from, and that will feed into each other, so it'll produce greater degrees of negativity. Then it's paramount that you exercise methodologies to change the nature of your relationship with fear. One. Two, recognize that the fear response can sometimes be a response to nothing. It's the idea that induces it.
Right.
So it's not because there's like a tiger 2 feet in front of you, right? Now it's because you're afraid she won't like you, or he won't like her, or she and she won't like each other. So now what does it do? Makes you afraid. Like, and then you start second guessing yourself and then it'll prevent you from acting in a way that might be beneficial, like so that you could further a relationship with another person. Virtually anything can incite it, right? Failure to meet the expectation, which is perception of a threat. It's a threat to you, like, right? The threat of, you're going to be alone because you can't connect with anyone.
There is realistic reasons to have these sort of reactive mechanisms within us. Like, we're very adaptive, I think, in part because of these systems we have, and it's amazing. But nowadays, in particular, I think it's being hijacked. Whereas, if we lived out in the forest, like hunter and gatherers, there's a huge benefit to having a brain like this.
Right.
Now it's a problem. Now we're kind of stressed out. We don't take control of our I forget the system that deals with
autonomic nervous system. Or is that what you're talking about, or you're talking about something psychological? Like,
I think it's a psychological system that deals with like preparedness.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's the autonomic nervous system. It's a fight or flight response.
Okay. Yeah, that would be accurate.
Right. So, go ahead.
I was thinking, if we're presented with information that's always negative, like if we have a negative source of information and we keep going back to it, it's going to put us in that subjective, fearful state.
Right. So if you're bombarded constantly by images of like warfare and destabilization of the economy, it can produce a perpetual state of fear. And as you clearly pointed out, biologically speaking, because it's so primal, it was probably really effective when we were subject to the natural world. But we haven't been living in a natural world for thousands of years. We live in very complex, organized societies, and I would make the argument that fear actually amplifies the worst negative effects within society. So instead of well-organized societies running smoothly and people kind of being sympathetic towards each other, it further divides us. It further creates isolation, and it plays on this fear to amplify that effect. So now you live distrusting or expecting the worst from others.
Yeah,
Right?
I just want to say it's very important to point out, like, it, that is, there's an empathetic response people have when they have this fear instilled in them. It's always like, oh, I feel what they're feeling. I'm concerned the way they're concerned. This is as much a real danger as it is to them. It's like, no, no, no. You can have you can be sympathetic where you acknowledge it, but empathetic where you feel it. That's a detriment to your own life.
100%. So empathy can easily lead to you being overwhelmed, which then translates into an emotional response of fear, right? So being empathetic, I think, is kind of counterintuitive.
Right.
Right? I think it's great between parent and child, but I think that's the only time it's really any good. So, but sympathy serves far better because it gives you the ability to, or the capacity to be understanding and to try and understand the plight of another. So sympathy absolutely serves us well, right? But empathy can be a bit of a double-edged sword because again, you can succumb to those like very negative emotions, right? So again. It speaks to the rising problems with mental health in society today. So it's very commonly accepted that fear is a feature of nearly all clinical mental health problems and is the root cause of some of the most common ones. Anxiety disorders, fear is strongly associated with depression, psychosis, suicide attempts. Fear strongly linked to poor physical health. So here's this thing now that its influence, and we experience it individually, but its influence on the individual can lead to further problems, mental and physical. And then it's, you want to read into it, sure, go ahead. But when they're telling us that mental health issues are on a steep increase, not a decline, but an incline. So you can write that off however you want, but you clearly must recognize that fear it's clearly stated that fear is a chief component in it. So then it places the emphasis then on mastery of that particular emotion, like that you change the nature of your relationship with fear so that it's no longer, it's because you can't suppress it. Suppressing it will lead to more problems. So then you have to change the nature of the way that you relate to it so that how it influences you.
This ties in perfectly to what I said earlier about how you can have a subjective experience with fear and an objective experience with fear. Like, that sounded kind of weird, and I had a feeling, but I couldn't exactly explain how that worked. But you can be objective.
Would you like me to provide an explanation for?
Can I give it a try?
Oh yeah, please do.
If emotions are a guide and you feel fear, there is fear present. Maybe it's something to prepare for, and you can do that through objectiveness. You can't do that through subjectiveness.
Right, because what does subjectivity do? It causes you to react. But if you're objective and you're confronted now with fear, the fear doesn't move you to react. It now, objectively speaking, you will see whatever the threat is, and then you'll determine how much of an actual threat is, and then you'll choose the most appropriate course of action to address the threat. That's what objectivity provides. Subjectivity means you succumb to the threat and everything that comes with it. So the emotional response, all the baggage that comes with it, that you cave to it, right? And then the only thing it can yield, typically, is somebody lashing out or fleeing.
Right.
Right. So given a choice, how would you choose to respond to your own fears?
Of course, objectively, because if you think about it, you can't fight or flight your way out of every situation.
Right. And so then if you're in command of the emotions, then you don't have that physical response. So you don't get these stress hormones getting dumped into your system because your body's preparing to fight or to flee. That's a reaction. So if you're completely at ease with everything that's going on around you, and all you're doing is you're addressing it critically and objectively, then you'll choose an appropriate course of action to address whatever it might be without any psychological or physiological baggage. Right? You'll be completely present, completely dialed in, and your nervous system's not going to be fucking firing like it's out of control. That is going to be completely under control. And then that's what allows for you to consider an appropriate course of action, and then act appropriately. Right. So again, the argument should be clear, right? And short of you being completely subjective about it, then you'll see the veracity in the argument and the claim that we're making, right? Right. So fear is something to be mastered, or you're mastered by it, right?
God forbid there's any way to make money off of fear.
Oh, gee, imagine that. So fear and anxiety are interrelated, and when faced with fear, most people will experience physical reactions described under the anxiety, right? Fear can cause anxiety, and anxiety can cause fear. Again, hence the need to master your emotions, because you don't need the fear to create anxiety. You can have an anxiety over something and it'll produce a heightened sense of fear. So they feed into each other. So the focus, the reason why you would choose to master your emotions is to prevent these cycles from occurring, to neutralize them early when they are easy to address. But that requires you to master your emotions, self-mastery, right? The idea that you change the nature of your relationship with fear, your fear, right? And then even in the face of terror, you can be calm, at ease, and prepared to do whatever's required. Again, it shouldn't be hard to see the value in that, right? And why it should be so important to cultivate something like that.
Right. Like, we're all going to face tragedy, no matter who we are.
Completely inevitable.
Multiple tragedies, even.
Yeah. Yes. And ongoing. You can fully expect it. Life's a series of small fires that you either address and turn out, or they turn into one raging fire that threatens to consume you. Right. So it's problem solving, and you'll be confronted by innumerable things that need your attention and that you need to address. And then the question becomes, how are you going to address them? Are you going to be reactionary? Or are you going to choose a course of action that neutralizes whatever the problem is, or addresses the problem completely, or as best as humanly possible? That's it.
Right. Sometimes, even if you prepare as best you can, it's like, still lost an arm. Still lost an arm. Still lost a leg.
Right. So again, it speaks to the idea that even somebody who is completely self-mastered, it's not a guarantee. But what it does do is it does produce the opportunity for far better outcomes.
Yeah. I would say there's a lot of good opportunities you'll see if you're able to pause, take a breath, and go, I'm here now, what's next?
Right. And I would even argue that a fraction of a second is enough. So if you're completely dialed in and present, you don't need to ponder what's going on. That you might need a fraction of a second, and then a good cognitive response or good cognition to then choose a course of action. Right, yeah. And all of it would appear to occur in an instant.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to say it too, because I don't want to say you're reacting, but the mental process you go through to find solutions when you're in an objective state, dude, it's like that.
It's an instant, right? So all you need is an instant to pause, right?
If you watch like a snowboarder or a skateboarder, like, it looks natural.
Or when you're snowboarding, or
Yeah.
right?
Well, I can't do it. I'm not that
Well,
good.
okay. So, but what we're essentially talking about now, we kind of brought the entire in the way the conversation's gone, the flow state, right? Popularized by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, but it's also a very common part of the Taoist traditions, and we did talk about the Dantian last episode. But the idea of like the energy systems of the body that in this completely attended state where your attention and intention are completely present in the current moment, the flow state, that you're fluid, you're able to adapt to everything seamlessly and effortlessly. So this is what you're cultivating, self-mastery. This is what it leads to. Like, so again, the practical concerns or the practical considerations of how it addresses fear and the fear response and all that stuff. It also facilitates the capacity to be able to move in a way to address issues in the most intelligent way. And it's this fluid, natural, flowing state.
That reminds me of something I've heard a few times, but I can't remember the word for it. It's like you integrate and it's something like being aligned. And in that sort of form where you're aligned, it's fluid, it's consistent, it's
Right. So you're moving with the natural rhythms. You're not forcing it. You're not fighting it. You move as it moves. Right. I've often used the analogy of like the surfer on the surfboard. It applies because it's accurate and it's something that everybody can understands. It illustrates the point perfectly. That's what you are, right? That we're all surfers, and either you're in the water or you're on the board.
I mean, that could be positive.
Well, it is positive. Like at some point you're gonna there's look, the flow, you can be pulled out of the flow state and it takes 1/10 of a second for that to occur, right? But the point is that the the more you do it, the better you're able to move in and out of it. So that means sometimes falling off the board, right? But then all you do is get back on the board.
Instead of saying it could be, I probably should have said it ideally is.
Well, I think could's fair. I think because it's not definitive. Again, we're talking about things that there's no guarantees and there's no definitive. This is the absolute, answer to what you're confronted with. It's an ability. It's a skill and an ability to cultivate that allows for you to manage now all these things that are part of your biology and then and the natural part of your psychology and your physiology. So then you are in charge of those things. Every animal in the animal kingdom is subject to their biology and psychology. It runs the show, except for us. But if you're afraid and you favor fear or you use it as a motivator, then all your decisions, everything you make, are under the influence of that fear. So then you can surmise that it would lead to just bad decisions.
I'm putting weight on the Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow state because I don't. I see it being really beneficial. I don't see any circumstance where you have a world full of people in the flow state and they just walk around being dummies. That's not going to happen.
That's not how the flow state works. The flow state, yeah, but it's about being present. So you're not wandering around with your head in the clouds. Yeah, you're completely dialed in. You're in the moment.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see a world full of these people acting like dummies.
It never happened. But you have to train to be like that, right? You have to cultivate that because it's a skill to be cultivated, right? And that's, at that point, that's usually what shuts off most people's brains. Because you go, whoa, you mean it's work? Yeah, it's fucking work.
It's not a slim fast pill. What?
Yeah, yeah. There's no easy way to it, other than to agree to or seek out some methodology of training that trains the nervous system, that forces you to to be present, and then that becomes part of the day-to-day experience. Doesn't have to be the overwhelming part of the day-to-day experience. That's the other cool thing about it. You only need maybe 10 to 20 minutes max a day. And if you can't find the 10 to 20 minutes, then enjoy being pushed around by your emotions and your psychology and your biology. They're going to run roughshod all over you.
That's one thing I wanted to add to, because oh shit, did I just lose it? Okay, I'll get.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so while you're thinking about that, just jump in if you can remember that thought. But let's move. I just want to quickly move on to 3 types of fear. So they break down fear as primal, irrational, and rational fears. I would make the argument that there's no such thing as a rational fear, but that this is how they define it. So primal fear is a type of fear defined by an innate fear that is programmed into our brains by experience or someone else's knowledge to keep us safe. A good example of this is fear snakes, right? And they think that might even be like, again, not to suggest that like from our early ancestors that became programmed into us, but if it becomes part of the common behaviors of people right up to say 8,000, 10,000 years ago, and it's a behavior that's promoted into the future, then it should be no surprise that as soon as people see a snake, they reel back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even in mythology, they use snakes as references.
Right. Or
it's ingrained.
Right. So then, right, and that's what the primal fear is. It's either by experience or someone else's knowledge. So guess what? If you're force-fed the fear of snakes, then and reptiles, you shouldn't be surprised that you're afraid of, snakes and reptiles.
Right.
Okay. So, and then we'll move on now to rational fear, which is defined as fears that exist when no actual threat exists. Can include the fears of fictional future situations. So something that hasn't happened, but that they project so much onto it possibly happening that it now drives them into fear, a fear response. Usually an anxiety disorder this is usually known as phobias, right? And it's an uncontrollable, irrational, and lasting fear of a certain object and situation or activity. And I'm surprised at how the list of phobias. I'm just going to read off just a few here, because honestly, virtually everything can induce a fear response, but arachnophobia, which is fear of spiders, acrophobia, fear of heights, cynophobia, fear of dogs, trypanophobia, fear of injections, petromyrohanophobia, fear of flying, mysophobia, fear of germs, ornithophobia, fear of birds, and philophobia, fear of love. So you know what I mean? And they're cited as that irrational because it produces an extreme, usually typically extreme result in the individual who experiences it, right? And then the third fear, which is rational fear, which occur when there's a real and imminent threat. Someone is brandishing a knife at you, and then the fear of being stabbed is a rational fear, or fear of death. I would argue that the fear of death or the fear of being stabbed is just as irrational as a fear of love or a fear of birds, or that as an act of intelligence, you would choose a course of action to avoid being stabbed by a knife, or to avoid an unavoidable death. That's an act of intelligence. To me, there's nothing rational about like having a fear response based on that.
Right, you're saying
it's still producing a fear response.
Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't respond with fear at all. Respond how? Objectively, critically. So that means intelligently. So if someone's brandishing a knife, you leave, or you get a big club, or do you understand? You act in a manner that's intelligent, based on what you're confronted by, instead of having this rational response to fear. There's nothing rational about fear.
Let me know if I got this wrong, but it seems like we agree that there's an emotional response, like the fight or flight,
Right.
but it's unnecessary because as soon as you have that response, you're intelligent enough to go, wait a minute, that's a fucking knife. I'm getting out of here.
Okay,
You don't have to worry about the emotion
all right,
of it.
so that instead of having to go through the steps of the emotion, you change the nature of your relationship to the emotion, so that now when you're confronted with fear, the response, the emotional response and the physiological response is a minimum.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like, and that's the benefit of changing the nature of your relationship or the perspective you have with fear.
Yeah,
that it exerts less influence on you.
Right, you don't want to be terrified when somebody comes at you with a knife. You want to be
lucid, clear, and there, man. You want to deal with it. So, and if that means running, which is the best course of action, then you should flee. Then take off. You don't need you don't need a reactionary biological response to tell you that running from a crazy man brandishing a knife with a crazed look in his eye is a good course of action. Right?
Yeah,
that's intelligent. Why would you stay?
I feel like fear is only recognized as like the potential of danger. Nobody really thinks about like, oh, once I'm there,
but fear's not
helpful.
Fear's not the potential of danger. Fear's the emotional response to potential of danger or real danger.
Right.
Yeah. You're emotionally, it's incapable of making the distinction. It only reacts or responds. A direct threat to your existence, or the idea of a threat to your existence, and then you're going to have the same physiological response that's going to impact your psychology and biology to the point where now it's going to make you reactionary. No, thank you.
That's funny you mention it in that way, because I see so many times people are saying, oh, this could lead to this and you should be afraid of that, you should be afraid of this. It's because not the thing you're doing is wrong, but the byproduct of it is wrong.
The potential of where it could go. Sure.
Right. And typically I would say it's used out fear mongering because it doesn't seem logically consistent that this behavior does this. It's like, that's disagreeable, but you want people to react out of fear so they don't think about the logical conclusion of what you're saying.
Right. So then,
not you, but them.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Given that, then your options are then to be able to choose an intelligent course of action, or if you see the potential for danger in choosing to do something, then that's where you make a risk assessment. You go, hey, is it worth? And again, it's not based in fear. It's a critical analysis of where you are and potentially what could happen as a result of what you're doing, and then you make a decision. You go, here, what would be the smartest thing to do at this particular moment in time? Do you follow this with potentially the outcome being going one way, or do you now choose a course of action so to minimize or reduce that potential outcome?
Let me recite what you said, but absolutely butcher it. Are you telling me that instead of being fearful, we could prepare, instead of treating situations as if they are like real danger right in front of you, you could discuss it in a polite, civilized, like no risk whatsoever. It's a discussion. And then you could also, by doing that, become more objective, less subjective, more connected.
Right.
And you could keep yourself busy so you're not preoccupied with the danger or the emotional response to this idea that there might be danger. Instead, you're just getting ready.
Right.
You're just getting ready for the most probable thing.
Okay, right. So hence the importance then of the ability to communicate, to get past fears. Because if fear is this powerful influencer of thinking and physical behavior of humans, and the only way to circumnavigate it is for humans to be able to communicate effectively so that you can address whatever this thing is that's a potential danger. Not the fear, That
Yeah.
you go, here, if this is your concern because this potential danger, let's address the danger. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. So then, and now we can put into action, or put a course of action in play that now will allow for us to avoid that potential outcome, or a way to actually even directly seek out that outcome to neutralize its threat.
Right.
What?
Yeah, in this time of age, that's so, like, I'm not saying this from my own perspective, but I am technically. I'm just saying, like, a lot of people are like, oh no, you can't talk about it. If you're talking about it, you're denying it. If you're denying it, you're the other.
No, how is it that you're denying something when you're addressing it in
That's
conversation? I'm going, that's a ridiculous notion. Like, that, you know what that is? That's the ostrich. You ever heard that expression?
They stick their head
in the ground? Yeah. It's denial. It's refusal to accept the reality of what's going on. So what is that? Well, it's subjective.
Right.
Right? So objectivity doesn't give you the fucking waste of time to sit there and deny shit that's going on. You go, here, it says one thing. You are being presented with this and it requires your attention.
Yeah, if somebody's trying to sell pears in a store and someone says, "Hey, we shouldn't be selling pears. Get the pears out of the store. What are you doing? This is terrible. Pears are gross." And they're like, "Wait a minute, let's just talk about this." And they're like, "You want to talk about selling pears? That's terrible. You're terrible." It's like they don't give you the room.
Again, it's subjectivity and it's reactionary.
Yeah.
And think about social media and think about how often people are reactionary. They're not interested in a dialogue for the purposes of understanding.
Right.
They're arguing to be right. Well, if every side that comes to any kind of debate is only arguing to be right, then it won't matter what's said. Nobody will agree. Right?
I've already said part of what I forgot to mention earlier.
Right.
But this ties into it. Like, elevating the perception, or no, elevating the fear you feel through your own subjective perspective. If you elevate that to the level of, oh, this is a real danger, like, you are, I don't want to be this, like, 100% put my weight on it, but I feel like that makes you ineffective, like, outright.
Right, because you're justifying the fear. And I'm like going, right, you find an explanation to somehow suggest that it's valid. And I'm telling you that, I'll tell you outright, right to the camera, fear is not valid. Fuck fear. Right?
It's outright propaganda at that
right.
point.
Everything that you want is on the other side of fear. George Adair, I think, who said that. Right? So and we don't, and hence the reason why we're having this conversation, because people don't talk about this stuff. But yet, it's at work in everything that they do. How often you see it pop up in social media, or the fact that you have people going, you can't speak that way, or you can't say those things. What do you think drives that? Fear. It's fucking childish. Yes, no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say, a second ago I said, oh yeah, it's propaganda. It's not necessarily propaganda, but it is absolutely 100% conditioning you to become more subjective, more reactionary. Well, that's kind of implied with subjectiveness, but it makes you the ideal tribe member. It's like, oh, you're in my group now.
Well, but here's the thing. It also makes you a panic button.
Yeah.
That all you have to do is find the right trigger and it'll incite them. And what will they do? They'll be reactionary. I'm going, and I just described a huge portion of the population.
Yeah, like I might say, hey, you know what? I kind of like pears. And then somebody walks up to me.
Are you mad? Yeah. What's wrong with you? Yeah. You like pears?
Yeah, get the fire. We're going to get this guy. I like
burn him at the stake!
I like apples more. I'm just saying we should get rid of pears.
Again, couldn't be crazier. Right?
I know, it's silly to see this, because, like, I'm pretty young. I'm not experienced to the degree where I should know what society is normal. But seeing what's going on now, it's like none of this is fucking normal.
No, and again, I think it as you just said, I think everything that you see going on within legacy media, social media, it illustrates the point that I'm making, right? That that it's not insanity or madness, it's people being unsane, right? Because they're not in the driver's seat. Their life is being run by their biology, their psychology, and then external influences. So again, you can derive it all from subjectivity. And remember, subjectivity is biases, opinions, preferences, and prejudices. All those things are what drives, like I said, a significant portion of the population. That those are the things that are informing their behaviors, informing the things that they say. That if they heard themselves, they actually listened to what they were saying, they would go, wow, that's unreasonable. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And nobody is willing to say it. Well, here it is. Right?
I want to bring this up. Before I mentioned how if you see a tiger on the screen, you have a physiological reaction.
Right.
That's also true to positive things. You see a cute little puppy on that TV, you're happy.
Right. Okay, but we're not discussing joy and stuff like that. Okay,
No,
right.
no,
But to your point, it works the other way as well.
Right. So if we have these discussions which are civil, they don't necessarily have to be happy, but if they're
Fun, maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting, maybe.
If they're at least like critically objective, they're not for the sale.
Reasonable.
Yeah, reasonable. With good reason too.
Right. And we're not selling nothing. I don't care. I don't want your attention. I don't care that you're listening or that you don't. But this needs to be said, right? Because again, a significant portion of the population is basically behaving like childishly. They're silly.
Right. I think if we look at the fact that we're dealing with this emotional reaction, like just having this space where you don't need any emotional reaction, you're just thinking through things, discussing things.
Right.
This is like the straightest highway to just having a solution. Like just
right. It's an open dialogue that in the course of the open dialogue, solutions could present themselves.
Yeah, over multiple discussions.
Right. But you're not going to have that if you're saying you can't talk about that. You can't say that.
Yeah.
I'm like that stifles any kind of advancement. And the only thing it promotes is somebody's personal agenda. And I don't like, the only response I have to people who are like self-interested and only give a shit about themselves. I got two of them for you too. Right? That we're all in this together. You don't recognize that and you want to run around like you're running the show. You should expect opposition. Nobody likes somebody like that. Right?
I think opposition can be really good because when you have, let's say, a person who's like very much experienced in their own way of life, like you practice martial arts, you're to not. I don't know if it's accurate saying like you're into spirituality.
Yeah, sure. But yeah. I'm not religious, but maybe that might be an accurate characterization that I'm spiritual. Sure.
Right. So to have a long form discussion with you, if somebody disagrees with you, it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong. Just the fact that there's one person who's experienced and one person asking questions, that opens it up to like a back and forth that you might not necessarily get when you're thinking by yourself with your phone in front of you that's telling you something and you can't talk to it back.
Right.
You can write in comments, but it's not like everybody in there is experienced.
But that's not a dialogue. That's not a conversation. Right. That's just people making statements, right? And usually they're in context to what another statement. So they become a trigger that incites you. And I'm like, here, instead of being incited, we could just have conversations. Get together in a coffee shop, hang out with a couple people, and talk about the meaning of life. What does it mean to be human? Right? Those conversations that you're not having.
And it's not like just triggering one person that triggers another
Right,
person.
and it doesn't, and the point of the conversation is to have the conversation. You don't have to come to any definitive conclusions.
Right. Oh, sorry. I just want to jump in and mention
Sure.
one of my favorite things about discussions where I think there's something like deep that's coming out, like something that's not quite there. It's kind of abstract. It's in the back of your brain. It's a feeling, not yet a thought. Those moments where you go, "Oh yeah," and then
You have the
it
epiphany.
clicks.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
light goes off.
that's the best part about having discussions with like all these different friends I have is like I'll have these clicking moments, and it's because I have the opportunity to like synthesize everybody's opinion together. I'm like, oh wait a minute,
Right.
that
So,
clicked.
and this allows for then to have opposing ideas, and then you entertain them without dismissing them or judging them. You go, here, is there maybe there's some value in that. That the growth of any individual or the cultivation of understanding is your ability to entertain ideas and then take your time to come to some conclusion based on like whether you think the idea has any value or not, right? But that's the point. The point is to entertain them, to hear something that you go, on the surface, I don't like that. But then if you give it more time and you dive into it more deeply, you go, there's some parts of that actually resonate with me.
Yeah, there's so many gray areas.
Right.
I think that discussions are especially fun because if you think about it, it's just like you're more confident after the fact because you did, you put in the hard work, you did the thinking, you did the talking, but you also have like this amount of capability that grew.
The other side benefit is that it becomes a way of socializing and strengthens the bonds between friends, allows you to become more familiar with each other. The, the value in exploring these things is the exploration of these ideas. Like to me, the entire purpose of being here is to explore all of it in its entirety, every aspect of it. That's the point. The point is, that's why you're here. And it's no mistake that you're here at this particular moment in time. You're supposed to be here to experience whatever this particular moment in time is. And then in that, part of the experience is you exploring it. And that means exploring ideas, it means exploring cultural ways of living, like all of it. You shouldn't be turning your nose up to anything. You should just be open and willing. It's an enormous playground.
Sorry, this is pretty negative, but I get the impression that people who aren't curious and they don't have this sense of there's more out there, there's endless things we don't know that we could at least reach towards. The people that lost that kind of drive in them, like that like learning, creating, loving drive, it seems like not only are they not willing to have these discussions, but they feel like everything is like just it's not essential. Like they're
or it's all a threat.
oh yeah, that's even worse.
Right?
That's even worse
That
than
it's
being
all
not
a threat.
interested.
That's
It's
right.
a threat.
It's all a threat to them. It threatens me. I need security. I need a safe space.
Right. I think that's actually something. Sorry, I'm just figuring this
No,
out.
it's okay.
I think that's something that grows out of nihilism. This idea that there's nothing that matters. I think they've refined purpose, but it's in this idea of like, oh, I need to protect what I believe in my bias, so I'm gonna
So that I can feel whole. But here's the fact of the matter. Anyone who does that, that's the last thing experienced. They get no wholeness. They're never complete.
yes, yeah. Because if you're free, you know there's no completeness, and you're okay with it. But if you are nihilistic, you turn tyrannical, and once you're tyrannical, you realize, oh, I have to keep tyrannizing people.
And distracting myself because there's no richness or quality of their existence. It only comes at the expense of others. Why do you think they turn to tyranny?
I think they think once everything is ruled, like, oh, I think this system of governance works the best. If I was just the leader of the world with this,
I would fix everything. Would
Right.
you?
Right.
Would you? Whiny bitch. Shut up.
oh, the only reason totalitarianism hasn't worked yet is because I wasn't in control and
Yeah,
it wasn't
because you know
completely
I'd be
implemented.
a thoughtful emperor. People would love me.
Yeah.
Come on.
So
We've had and you don't have to apologize. We've explored that for the last 6,000 years of recorded history, right? Tyrannies of one kind or another, and they all fail. Not just fail, fail miserably. So clearly, that should tell you one thing: it doesn't work, right?
it keeps happening.
Well, it's because, again, because a small minority is desperately trying to lay claim to the majority, and they are all driven by subjectivity, and worse, their ego. So they presume that somehow they know better than the rest of us, that their authority is supreme, and that we should be grateful for the fact that they exist so they can guide us, because we're the misguided and the lost. Fuck you. Right? To anybody who would aspire to power in that way, you're a fucking moron. Right? The only value in this life is mastery of self and the evolution of self, so that you can manifest and present as the highest expression of who you are. There's value in that. There's satisfaction in that. There's a rich life in that. But you ain't going to get that chasing power.
I hate hearing these people that follow ideological systems that tend to go like, oh, we want power, we want this, we want that. Because they'll say stupid shit like, oh, if you're trying to work out or if you're trying to be stronger, you're part of this like this systematic uh, this systematic use of physical force. It's like, no, you need to be prepared. You don't need to train and then hurt somebody. You could train and then
And nothing ever come of it beyond the fact that now you gain the satisfaction of like physically engaging your body. You get to experience all the health benefits that come with it. There's enormous psychological benefits of physical activity and exercise, again, that you can immediately poo-poo and try and dismiss, because somehow you're making the association that anyone who works out is part of it, a part of like like some kind of like suppression of you and your individuality, when actually it's the opposite. Exercise, and particularly when it's an individualized pursuit, elevates the individual.
right. Would you rather be a warrior in a garden or a gardener and a warrior? In
a war. A gardener in a war. Well said. I think that's a Zen proverb. I can't remember now, but I've always loved it. Yeah, it's okay. It's all good. Honestly, that one's awesome, and the idea is like, look, that you can live your life in such a way where now all you're trying to do is avoid having to face your life, or you can seize it by the horns and go, here, I'm gonna live it the best that I can, and I'm gonna actively pursue that. But when you say you're going to live your life the best that you can, you have to define first what the requirements are to have the best life, or to live the best type of life. And it's not tied to your profession, the amount of money you make. It is to a limited degree tied to material resources, because you need to have access to them so that you have the availability of time to be able to then actively pursue the elevation of self. But in the elevation of self is when you come into your own, when the uniqueness of the individual that you are really becomes expressed in a real robust and meaningful kind of way, and you're not imposing it on anyone. You're just happy to be you, right? So again, objectivity can lead to that. So again, why would you be actively seeking to use subjectivity as a blanket to wrap around yourself, to insulate yourself from the world, when you could drop the blanket and go, I'm open,
engaged?
yeah, let's see what's out there. That's up to you, the individual. And I'm tired of people who like basically like blame society for it all, and then in their blaming of society render themselves powerless to do anything. Like, Look, society is only the individuals that make it up. And if you feel disempowered and you're going to blame society, you stop at the most important part. You should be using that now as a stepping stone to go here. Then if I can't force society to change, I can change. And then actively seek the elevation of yourself. And by virtue of that, if every individual did that, the society has to change.
I get the impression that emotions are a guide not only for like the individual but the people around them. Like if somebody's having a bad day, I'm definitely a reactive person in the sense that if someone's being like really pissy with me, it's like I could stand that for like 10 minutes. After that, I'm getting pissy too. So there's some benefit to acknowledging uh, mental health, but like being aware of it and then putting it first and foremost are two completely different things.
I agree.
If we're able to recognize there is a lot of people with anxiety, not a lot of trust, there's a lot of people who have these ideologies where they think like pushing down on people, making more laws is how you get through this.
Yeah.
We need to realize that's a reaction of society. It's not the issue society has. It's just the way it is now.
Well, it's the way currently the way it functions is it really tries to legislate morality.
Right.
And you simply can't. No matter how many laws you create, there are those who are clever enough that they'll find a way to circumnavigate those very laws, right? So that those don't apply to them. And I'm like, and it's just this endless circle that we're now. You create such a bureaucracy and such a body of individualized laws for every contingency that. Who the hell could possibly understand a body of information like that? Where like the minutia is like endless. And it's all meant to address the way humans behave. It becomes a mockery of itself. It's just ridiculous, right? And so that's the argument that I make, right? That it is in fact ridiculous.
I think it's ridiculous that we have these ideas that we can put strict laws around like every human behavior. It's like there's so many things we can't understand necessarily yet. But if we look from a distance, we're not in a bad place whatsoever. Like sure, right now seems like
everything. It's all a perception. So outside the international madness with Israel and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan and virtually anywhere where there's right. A potential hot spot. That's the madness of dominance. Someone trying to dominate somebody else, right, for their advantage. That's entirely subjective. And you want to liberate us from all of that, then it requires you to become objective. And not just objective, a critical objective thinker. In fact, it requires you to become a renegade individualist, humanist, critical objective thinker. Where now you're an individual with complete autonomy. Your decisions are not hampered and hamstringed by institutions of power or any kind of institution or organization. That now what you do is you act thoughtfully, clearly, and you're present as a human being. If you can't see the enormous value in that, you're blind.
I think it would at least lead people to understand there's some trivial and non-trivial issues going on, but there's no real reason to be fearful if you think about like all the benefits we have nowadays. We're not in medieval times. We can communicate effectively through the internet.
We have demonstrated such high capacity. I think it's time we grew into all those things we're capable of doing and demonstrate real maturity, real intelligence, which is what we're not demonstrating. It's completely opposite. We're immature, we're childish, we're emotional, like time for that stuff to sort of take a second seat. Right? There's no getting rid of all of that stuff that comes with subjectivity, including our biology and psychology. It's part and parcel of what we are. But it has to be accountable to the individual, not the individual accountable to it.
Right, that's how you get people to burn down their own neighborhoods.
Right. Right? And because an intelligent, a renegade individualist humanist would never do that. Critical objective thinker, you couldn't move that person to do it unless they through reason came to the conclusion the best thing they could do is burn down their neighborhood.
When I hear
and when would that ever be a good answer?
Zombie plague? I don't know.
Maybe zombie plague.
But then you have zombies on fire, and that
it gets all horrible, right?
No, but if you think about these people that act that way, not burning down houses and stuff, but they seem to be peaceful. They're a lot more open to having discussions, and it seems like they're more proactively looking for discussions instead of like physical, real conflicts.
Right. What they want to understand better. Imagine if all of us, that was your chief motivation, to understand better.
Yeah, conflict through discussion, but it's not conflict in...
it's not physical violence. Conflict is in bringing opposing ideas together and then seeing where there's merit in both sides, if any.
Right. That's so, like...
So you mean, so what? Mature, intelligent?
I was going to say it's so obvious, like, that's the solution.
Right, but nobody wants to talk like that. And again, remember the reason why. They want to be right. They're all about equality, but that's what they say. But what they mean, if you can read in between the lines, I'm a little more right than you are.
Right.
If you just listened to me and did what I said, then everything would be good. No, then we'd all be stooges, like automatons, robots, flesh and blood robots, doing as we're told. But we're not. Right? We're human beings.
If they're automatons, I would argue they're probably going, oh, I had a bad day, but I'm not going to think about it. I saw something that pissed me off on the internet, but I'm not going to say that's why I'm doing this. I'm just going to go over there and like yell at a person, I don't know, wearing like a Russell Brand t-shirt.
Yeah. So then, I guess it could be fair to say then the answer to all fear, or to all emotions, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. We need not wait to see what others do. Mahatma Gandhi. Right? So your focus shouldn't be to change the world. Just make every effort to evolve yourself. And then engage that evolved person with other people. Just engage. Just be available to each other. And surprisingly, it could all change.
I think it would be a playful ordeal. It wouldn't be necessarily like confrontational.
So it might actually even be fun.
Yeah. Sorry, this is what I was thinking about when you were saying that earlier. Sorry, for the viewer, earlier we talked about some people. One of them was Russell Brand. One thing I do like about him is he is like so enthusiastic.
Yeah, I would love to meet him. I would love to have a conversation with him. I've enjoyed his stuff from the movies he's been into, his stand-up, and and including like his stuff on YouTube and Rumble. I really, really like entertaining what he has to say, right? And again, and like you said, it's how well he points out the silliness of it all.
Right. In absurdity, I think it's easy to go, oh, this is all, like, I'm going to be nihilistic, this is all bullshit. But in his videos, like, this is not a personal statement about him, it's just the way he's dealing with the information. It's like, hey, isn't this silly? What if this was more like this? That would be cool. Hey, everybody.
That's
this would be a good day, wouldn't it be?
That's a terrible English accent.
I can't do it. I tried. But it's that positivity. Like, he's talking about really negative stuff, and he's like, this is silly.
But in the right way it's presented, then it's not threatening. No matter how grim and serious it is, it's not threatening. It's something that clearly becomes worthy of consideration, and that it should be addressed. Like something should be done about it. I go, well, isn't that the way we could be approaching everything?
Most of the time, you and I talk off camera about like serious things, like really serious dark shit. We start laughing. It's like that seems like an inappropriate response, but it's acknowledgement.
I think it's a perfectly normal and healthy response, right? Like so, what a great way to dovetail into discussion of death. That in and of itself, it is a grim subject, and avoidable deaths are always tragic. But having said all that, all of it's inevitable, and it's not any more or less likely than the fact that you're here. There's no question that you're here, right? And you're here with a limited amount of time, and you don't get to know exactly how much time that is. It's a fixed amount of time, and then the question becomes, what are you going to do with that time? Because the inevitable conclusion is that you're going to pass, you're going to die. Death is a normal and natural function. And yet we reel in terror to the idea, right? And I'm not a nihilist. I'm not somebody who's like just wants everything to burn, and I want to, if I did, it probably would have done myself in a long time ago. Right? But I look at death as a natural part of everything, as not something to be feared. Right? That if anything, you can use it as a very serious motivation. Because the question then arises, since you're here and you're going to expire, what are you going to do with the time that you have? How are you going to spend it?
Oh,
how would you like to spend it?
You love pissing off nihilists.
Oh, I hate them.
If you think about it,
they're completely lost children.
Yeah, I know.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, like, they're typically pissy teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, I've been there, of course.
Okay, right on.
But the logical conclusion they're going by is like, oh, because there's no meaning or purpose, why do anything? It's like you said to me since I was a kid, you find your purpose. You're not born with it.
Create it, and then actively pursue it.
Have I been saying nihilism wrong? Is it nihilism?
I don't know. I always said nihilist, but you could.
It's superficial.
Yeah, it's I kind of think I don't really think too much about it, but I do think a lot about death, and what I mean by that in terms of how it can inform our lives, right? Because then it's the relationship it has with life, and then it stresses the importance to have the richness of the experience of being alive, because we only have it for so long. And then eventually, we'll pass. But what's really important is what we do with that time that we have.
Right.
Right? And how are you going to spend it? And with whom are you going to spend it? And what kind of richness of experience do you want to have with them? That should be the focus. Right?
I think nihilism is so prevalent now because people...
Well, because they've given up.
I think they're predisposed to this idea that, purpose is given to you. Sociologically and traditionally, we see a lot of cultures that go, oh, your purpose is for God or for your country.
Right.
Now we're at the point, it's guess what? You're an individual. You have your own rights. You have your own say.
Well, okay. So there's always, culturally speaking, there's a consensus view of what life could or should be, right? And I would make the argument that the individual has to come to that conclusion on their own. Traditionally, much like everything in your life, it's imposed on you. Your name, your identity, your ideology, all of it, right? And then, so why would it surprise anybody that that includes your purpose to your existence, which is just to get out there, make money, so you can, work really hard towards your retirement, so then you can sit around and do nothing. That's not an existence. And I think now we're at that point where now we've seen ultimately what that ideology produces. And a generation of nihilists, or people who are completely disassociated with their existence, that they're doing everything they can to have any kind of experience except for the experience of being here. Turn to drugs, alcohol, gaming, sex, you name it. And I'm like, here, that's because you agreed to a consensus view, right, of what life's supposed to mean or what it's supposed to be, and as society dictates. I'm like, one, you can perhaps entertain the idea that maybe we don't need society, we don't need large governments. Maybe what we need is tribes or societies of realized individuals. But you're only going to get there when the individuals assume responsibility to become realized. That becomes their purpose, and they come to it from their own reasoning. Like, they reason it themselves. They spend the time committed to think about it, to entertain all the different ideas, and then they go, which is the most reasonable?
You said that a million times, a million different ways, but this time it's one of the times that really hit home. Because if you think about all these nihilistic people who are like spinning out all these like neurological systems, the feel-good ones,
right,
the stress ones, they're treated as a population, like a single number, a number one, and then that's a number one. It's just part of the population. They're not seen as individuals. They're
right, the hive.
Yeah, it's because it's power in numbers. It's not power in intellect. It's not power in individuality.
Right. It's the collective.
It's funny, the most rigorously logical people, or they say they are, they get caught up in like really fucking absurd things.
Well,
like,
some
like
of the
reductionism.
Right. And I was just going to say, with regards to that kind of hyper-specialization, what it really breeds, and it's largely because of ego and subjectivity, authoritarianism. It, not only is it right, it's right because I say it's right. And who are you to question me? When instead of, if they represented the highest level of understanding, this is what we understand. Have I made it accessible enough for you so that you understand? Do you have any questions? Okay, let's try and answer your questions, and we'll see where this goes. But we don't. We live in a place where we're supposed to get down on one knee and hang your head the moment an authoritarian speaks. And I'm like going, again, 5,000 years of this same kind of stupid failure to have any kind of real growth and maturity as individuals. And only you, the individual, can do that. But only because you reason it for yourself, by yourself. You come to that conclusion. Yeah. You don't need a guru. You don't need somebody to show you a way, and you certainly don't need an authoritarian to tell you what's what.
Right, because that's their perception, or
right.
Maybe it's a lie. Your direct experience is what matters. Your experience.
Right, and
to you.
And well, as an individual, not just your own experience, but then everything that you do in terms of broadening yourself as an individual. So the things you choose to learn, the fact that you maintain a constant state of learning, and then you understand the nature of like your physical being. It can be conditioned. So you choose the method of conditioning, right? And the method of conditioning you choose should elicit the best in what you are in terms of your biology and your psychology. I go, it's all there in front of you. All you got to do is show up and do the work.
not your emotions, but the physiological reactions that you have to a certain situation. It could, honestly, it could be an amazing teacher just living through it. Like this one, I forget who it was. They're talking about life in broad terms, and they were like, you don't know what life is like until you lay down on your floor and eat stale bread. And I was like, what does that mean?
Okay, there's I've heard many philosophers say that until you've accepted death, you can't accept life.
I like that approach of taking like the commonality and feeling it out. Like I actually did try laying on the ground and eating stale bread, but it was 5 minutes of. Well, realistically, it was about 2 minutes because the first 3 minutes I was like, "This is different," but the last 2 minutes it was surreal, and I was like, "Holy shit, I'm here!" Like, it was such a small thing. It's like I'm just laying on the fucking kitchen floor eating bread, but it was a surreal thing.
Yeah, because you had that. It provided an ultimate realization. I am here. You're all here. Anyone who's listening to this, all of you, you're here. What are you going to do with it now that you had the realization that you are here? How are you moving forward? You get to choose and stop looking for somebody to answer it for you. They're not any better suited at answering that question than you are. But you should seek out knowledge, and you should seek out knowledgeable individuals who are willing to share. That's how you grow, and that's how we pass on that knowledge by willingly and willfully sharing it. Right? And it doesn't matter that the information could be contradictory or paradoxical. Doesn't matter. The point is to entertain it all. Try and wrap your head around it and evolve as an individual. And then you no longer experience fear of death, right? Which is really the fear of the unknown, right? That now you're happy with not knowing. You're perfectly okay. You're contented without a complete answer to everything. But it doesn't mean that you stop looking.
I think a reductionist would stand here and go like, "Ah, oh, this hippie." But if you think about it, throughout this conversation, I'm going to say you specifically because a lot of the things you said do attribute to this. But these are negative things: fear, death, isolation, togetherness. None of this is necessarily good or bad.
It's just things that happen to us.
You can experience it in a positive light,
and it's really a matter of how you perceive it. So if your expectation or your perception is that it's bad, it's bad.
Right.
But it can also be good, or it could be neutral. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It's just something that you're presented with. Here, what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the question that it always gets reduced to. You live, you die, fear, danger. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when confronted with those things?
You're here now. What's next? What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Right? I've clearly laid out what I do. So then the question becomes, are you going to do it too?
No.
What?
Yeah,
but that's fair. That's entirely fair. No one's obligated to. And I'm not doing this because like I'm looking for some kind of notoriety or anything. I'm sharing, right? Because I practice what I preach. You become knowledgeable, you freely share the knowledge, right? And I'm not selling nothing because I'm not looking for a payday out of this. What I'm looking to do is simply to share.
Right, you're sharing usually things that are fun to think about, or they're the most common situations we should be thinking about. I say should in my opinion, because like fear, death, all these things are very, very important.
Right, and they're part of the common experience. All of us experience them.
And you'll find ways to deal with it through your own experiences. They might not align with your or my way of living, but as long as you're...
But it doesn't invalidate the experience.
Right.
And there could be insights gained from somebody who doesn't have those experiences. Again, right. Hence the value in it, and hence the value in sharing the experiences and thinking about things that we don't commonly address in conversation. Which and when you think about it, you go like, it should be the most common conversation, and it's not, because what's the most common conversation? What do the influencers say? Weather, sports, entertainers, going all frivolous shit, like it's fucking icing. You ever eat icing all day? All it gives you is a gut ache.
Yeah, that's like sugar and what? I don't know what else is in
You know,
there.
and eggs and whipped till they're fucking fluffy, and then and you go, oh, the first couple spoonfuls, fantastic, man. I can't eat another bite. I'm feeling like shit. Like I'm going, like, all that pablum, all that stuff is fun, but it's utterly meaningless, right? So, and the stuff that has value, hey, life, death, and everything that goes on in between. And it's worthy of you taking the time out to think about it and think about how you're going to approach those things and what you would choose to do, given now that you understand that, shit, you're here.
Yeah, you have to discover yourself once you realize you're here and present, and you're not just like a reactive embodiment of your ideals. You're not an embodiment of your ideals. You're an embodiment of your experience, and like I want to say like biological responses, and then also your mental state.
All of it is in play, right? And you have to at some point address all the aspects of what it means to be human. So that is the psychology, it is your biology. All those things are worthy of not just discussion, but then once you've gotten in deeply into the conversation about them, what to do about them, if anything, right? And to me, the answer is that you apply discipline methodologies of training, and you amplify them in the most positive and best capacities, right? And then what you produce in the individual is somebody who's more closer to their limitless potential. And what I mean by that is they're more closer in realizing it. And the point might be to spend your entire life doing it, because it might be a line that none of us will ever cross. But who cares?
Yeah.
Part of it is finding purpose and things to do in your life. Well, what could be more purposeful or meaningful to do than to always push the limits of what you're capable of across every aspect of what it means to be human?
Yes, 100%. If you think about how each individual standing on the shoulders of giants, not necessarily everybody is a giant themselves,
right?
But we're all supported by a long history of amazing people. So why are we belittling each other?
Well, because again, when you're socially conditioned to be a consumer competitor, anything to get an edge on the competition.
Right, artificial inflation. We see that in every marketplace, and that is currently in the social thought space, I would say.
Right. So tearing each other down, it's a byproduct of subjectivity. I've experienced it at the hands of people who had known for decades, who I thought we had a deep trusting friendships and relationships, and as a matter of convenience for them, they were only too happy to gaslight me or out and out lie, assassinate my character, and it again, it's the behavior of spoiled children, people who don't know what to do with themselves, or worse, think what they think is more important than whatever anyone else thinks.
I hate that, especially when nihilists do that, because they have like, oh, nothing matters. Oh, but my subjectivity.
Except me. Nothing matters except me.
Right. There's 100 times I might have wanted to put off the podcast till another day, but I didn't do it because it's fucking better than watching TV. It's better than any other plans I had. Do you want to do it for fun? I go for a walk. I might read a book once a week. Like, not an entire book, just a few pages. And it's like, is that enjoyable? Not really. Am I going to read more today? Yeah, no, I will. Am I going to cancel the podcast? No, you're going to do the reading afterwards.
I typically, for myself, I can tell you virtually any day of the week what I'm doing at pretty much any given time. But that's because I lead a very structured life. And in all that structure, I do allow a lot of wiggle room so to be able to freely interpret the day, to give yourself personal time, like just downtime. All those things are important, right? But I don't neglect one thing for another. I try to find balance and have it across the board, so I'm able to do all the things that I love to do. I'm physically and actively engaged virtually every day of the week in some form or some manner. Meditation I do every day of the week. I actively seek new ideas and try to learn new things, expand my own knowledge base for the purposes of being better able to interact with people and to be more sympathetic and more understanding. Right? So I'm not just talking, I don't talk this shit, I live it. And it's been very costly being able to come to these conclusions and have these realizations in a personal way, right? I don't begrudge the fact that it played out in the way that it did. It's just the way it played out, right? So I'm not hung up on it anymore. It doesn't mean I'm foolish, and I don't. And so once somebody's betrayed my trust, I don't willfully turn over anything that passes as trust to anybody like that again. I don't give them the opportunity to make me look bad. But having said that, I don't shit on them either. I don't treat them like they're less than. They just got more work to do, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Right. So I don't. My focus isn't on the fact that these things have happened in the course of my life. What I focus on, what can I do right now?
I try to see things in a selfish way because I never want to give off the perspective that I'm being like, I'm a good person, I'm helpful, because I think that's kind of bullshit. I think when we do this podcast, I reason out that it's worth it. This is if I feel shitty, I might try to reason out. But it's not because I feel like there's nothing else to gain from this podcast for me personally besides having the opportunity to take in other inputs, and that's something that's like freeing.
Yeah, for me, it's just an opportunity to express all these different ideas that I've been carrying around for a long time. It kind of puts the impulse in that I need to like source them information so to be more accurate with regards to it, I genuinely have fun doing this. So when it stops being any of those things is when I'll walk away. Like there's this kind of subjects to cover are pretty endless, although and it's me, but I do tie it again to my own kind of, I tie everything that we cover to the philosophy of, essentially that I promote, right? So, but that I'm the one who's writing it, so I can do whatever I want. And so that's just me having fun with it, right? So it's become this great opportunity to express all these ideas that I think are worthy of people hearing, even if they only ever hear it once, right? And the reality is that there's no way of knowing how much this will impact anyone. If it positively impacts a single person, then that's a great side benefit, but that's not why I do it.
Right. Like I mentioned, Lee, it's not like free just to hang out and it's fun and easy. Like it takes some critical thinking, it takes some energy, but it's an opportunity for me to take in your inputs and also to I barely ever go like, oh, you're wrong, but a lot of the time it gives me contextual information I would not get alone. So bouncing ideas off each other, I see this being, I feel like a idiot for saying this, but yeah, no, talking is directly the most beneficial thing you could do. Just
I think the fact that we do this perfectly illustrates the value in being able to have a conversation with somebody, and then unrestricted, and you just go where the information takes you, and then you explore like tangents that you might be unlikely, but still, you go, here, let's just entertain it for a moment or two. That's the point of all of this, right?
Yeah, it's better than regressing into the state where you're isolating but not working on yourself. You're talking to people but not in order to interact. It's to dominate. This is the opposite. It's
right,
fun.
right. It's just an expression of ideas, and then again, as I stated in the opening, we examine and re-examine these ideas. And why? Well, because one, because they're genuinely interesting, and two, they might be worthy of repeating.
Instead, we're retroactive. I was trying to say this earlier, but I couldn't get the word
It's
out.
okay, it's okay.
Currently, people my age I see are following ideologues like this set of rules that actually retroactively takes out the beneficial parts of discussions that humanity has had forever. Like ancient Roman ideas are being taken out, and then they're being replaced with like, oh, this is what their culture was like. It's like we're not talking about their culture. We're talking about the strictly logical
and philosophical ideas that they entertain, to go that maybe those ideas are worthy of further consideration. We talked about, well, I bring up ancient Greece all the time. Philosophia, it's the love of wisdom. Plato's allegory of the cave. These are ideas. Why do you think they're still around?
Who is Plato's not descendant but his student? Seneca?
Xenophon and no, Plato and Xenophon were the students of Socrates. Socrates was Plato's teacher, and Socrates was this person that may or may not have existed, and is credited with the Socratic method, which is ultimately what we're doing. It's the purpose of discussion that just leads to better understanding, and then from that understanding, then you can maybe make decisions. Again, not a guarantee, but at least that maybe you'll make the most appropriate decision based on whatever it is that you're addressing at any given moment in time, right? And again, no guarantees that it's going to be right or wrong. I think those are things, again, irrelevant. Right or wrong?
Like, I think it's lucid. I think that's how you pronounce the name. But that was a person or group. I think it's controversial which is which, but I was going to say it's regardless of if it was group or an individual, what they did for mathematics was like...
You're talking about Pythagoras? Because he was considered like
the Eleusinian mysteries.
The Eleusinian mysteries. That's something altogether different. Okay, I want to do an actual full episode on that, but so I'm just going to try and sum it up real quick. I don't want to dive into it too deeply now, but we're going to do a full exploration of the Eleusinian mysteries. So the Eleusinian mysteries, you think of the time of ancient Greece, particularly ancient Athens, and they used to drink this brew, and it was all the highly respected, most influential thinkers. They would gather, I think it was like once a year, they'd drink this brew, kykeon, and the kykeon, in the fermentation process, sometimes would get exposed to this bacteria that would turn this alcoholic beverage into a potent hallucinogenic. And then they would take it, and then they'd wander through the caverns that were underneath Athens, and you'd have all these great thinkers and influencers of their time who, after their experience, would say stuff like, I lost all my fear of death as a result of the experience. And so this is in the earliest time when, remember, they had no awareness of how large the world was. They only knew the world of their own community, and the greatest threat to an individual was, beyond death, was exile.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's all I'm going to say with regards to the Eleusinian mysteries. But I promise we're going to do an episode where we're going to dive really deep into it, and all the potent philosophers that were attendees, because it was something that went on for a long time, and it wasn't until the advent or the domination of the Christian ideology that it was done.
Oh, I forgot that Rome was actually um, they had other, I would say, religious or spiritual beliefs before Christianity.
Oh well, it wasn't Rome. It was ancient Greece that did this, and then when ancient Rome, they borrowed so much of it, but they did have an ideology or a system of deities that they, prior to them adopting the ancient Greek deities. So the Romans had their own version of the
Right.
Olympian gods, and the Greeks had their version of the Olympian gods. And then when Rome came under rule of Constantine, and he converted the entire uh, Roman Empire to Christianity, then things like the Eleusinian mysteries, they basically put that to an end. Anything with regards to mind expanding consumables, and then intentionally trying to have an experience that would have a profound effect. Uh, they just basically brought it to an end. So, like I said, it's one of those things that you could get a couple hours of conversation out of. So, having said that,
Yeah,
I don't want to go any further.
that's the thing. I think I might have been thinking of a different group or people because it was like elucid, Eluicid.
Lucius,
I'll,
you know what?
I'll message you later. But
Okay.
I found it interesting because this person was like, or group was highly intelligent. If it is the group you're talking about, and they messed with psychedelics and did these cave walks, like that's super interesting because they
Yeah, and
found
they would do it by torchlight. So can you imagine you're in caverns?
tripping.
Yeah, and in the caverns, it's not like there's dangers. They're well, they're well walked. They've been used for countless years, and they, you're tripping balls, and you got a torch, and you're wandering through there, right? So you can only imagine what kind of experiences they were having.
But if that's the group I was thinking about earlier, then it just goes to show like maybe they had some benefits. Like they're regarded as like intelligent. They did great things for mathematics.
Yeah, I'm because Pythagoras, I know, participated.
That sounds like a route about the right time. If it's
Yeah, like I said, we're going to do a full episode, so I don't want to keep talking about the Eleusinian mystery. Although it is a super fascinating.
I'll be excited for that one
Yeah,
too.
it's the kind of thing like, look, we're trying to broaden people's minds by them having to entertain a wide range of ideas. And some people get that same benefit by imbibing, hallucinogenics, right? So in doing that, I mean, you have to find your way. So is it any less a method of training, right? Because for those who that it's a focal point to their existence, they don't casually do it. This is not for entertainment purposes. They're doing this to have like a very profound spiritual experience. Now, I'm not a proponent of taking anything. I don't like the idea of having to be dependent on anything. I like the idea that through methods of training, you can draw out those capacities within yourself as an individual. To me, seems like there's more value in that, and that's so I lean that way. But having said that, it doesn't make it. It doesn't invalidate it as a method of having more profound or deeper realizations.
I would agree, but without ingesting psychoactive material, like
Right.
by going through the process of, I would say, earning it, it's also integrated.
Yeah. When we do the Eleusinian mysteries, we're also going to get into DMT and all that stuff.
That's
Because it again, in and of itself, it's a super fascinating subject, and the potential for psychological disorders, for the resolution of them. There's so much good research, and there's an enormous study being run. I can't remember the university, but it's in the UK in London, But like I said, I'll have all that information for when we do that. Can I get a time check?
Right now we're an hour, 50 minutes in.
You know what? I think I think we might be at the end of this one. I think it's everything I wanted to say. I think I did say with regards to fear and danger and death. And if it wasn't too clear, I apologize for that. But honestly, it was genuinely a lot of fun. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Mm, I don't know. Try things.
Yeah,
Try new
man.
things.
Yeah, man. For sure. I think that you need to get out of whatever it is that you imagine is your comfort zone, and just like you said, try things. You might be surprised what you discover, right? It could lead. Here's the wild thing: it could lead to the very thing that you need, right? So in a roundabout way, you'll end up opening yourself up to something that could be enormously beneficial. So there's, again, value in exploration, value in, having willingness to try different things, to broaden your own horizons, right? So having said all that, is there something else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's obvious if the world around you seems dark and unexplored, as terrifying as it is to go out there, it will help you create the map. If you don't have the map, you think everything is potential danger, and that stresses you. It would be much better to know, oh, within 20 yards of me, there's two snakes. Everywhere else is peaceful. Everywhere else is nice.
I would just simply say that the only that you need to come to terms with all your emotions, but primarily fear. So that requires self-mastery, and you being able to distinguish between fear and danger. Danger is an actual threat, and you don't have to respond to it emotionally through fear. You can respond to to danger intelligently. You choose a course of action to address the danger, and then find a way to gain perspective on fear, so that fear is no longer influencing or feeding your behavior, right? So all of that is you're capable of doing, but it's a matter of what are you willing to do. So if all you're willing to do is scroll through TikTok and social media, and then have an opportunity to get together with people that you ingest enough stuff so that you can be out of your head, you'll never get there. You'll only ever be basically a puppet to your biology, your emotions, your psychology. But have heart. There's hope. Self-mastery. In closing, I would like to say, question everything, including yourself, especially yourself. Seek balance. Seek knowledge. Seek understanding. Become a renegade individualist, humanist, critical, objective thinker. Thank you for your time.